Threezero pilots an EVA for their newest release. Here's your look at the new Threezero Evangelion New Theatrical Edition, the Evangelion Test Type-01. From the rebuild of the Evangelion film series, the ROBO-DOU EVA Unit 01 Test Type is a non-scale figure standing about 10 inches tall with 48 points of articulation. It's made with a die-cast frame. The EVA Unit 01 features paint application techniques utilized to highlight all the details with glow-in-the-dark paint on the green areas and eyes to show luminous effects when displayed in the dark. Before we get down to the review of the Evangelion Test Type 01, the first thing we're going to want to do is figure out how tall it stands. Now this is debatable because technically if you go to the top of the EVA, it's going to be obviously a little bit shorter than the sides of its shoulders. So I think what I may do is measure off to the very tops of its shoulders as the highest point on the figure. While I'm doing this, I'd also like to thank the folks over at Threezero that provided the sample of the Evangelion test type that we could have a look at in this review. Solely scrolling closer to my tape measure, the figure stands 10.09 inches in height. We can switch that to centimeters, revealing that the Evangelion test type 01 is 25.6 centimeters tall. Evangelion, or Evangelion, depending on who you talk to, and there's enough examples online to support the pronunciation in both ways that I don't feel like either one of them is necessarily incorrect. But if you are looking to add the EVA to your collection, I believe this is slated to release in June 2021, and when you do get the figure for yourself, it will come with the following things. Before we get down to the accessories, I figured we would have first a look at the display stand and the included instruction guide. First of all, I want to commend Threezero for giving us pretty straight-to-read instructions. You'll see with the guide, for example, there's not very much to read at all. In fact, a lot of it is really just using photos to give you the idea of what exactly you're able to do when it comes to the accessories, when it comes to moving and posing the figure. Like I said, the read-ups are pretty straightforward, cut and dry. But I do like the fact that you got nice colorful images to tell you exactly how to handle the EVA for yourself and exactly what limitations, as there really isn't any limitations when it comes to the posability. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And there it is on the back with the umbilical cord. We're going to put that down to the side for the time being. Like I said, really happy the fact that we did get ourselves very colorful, easy to read instructions. To come also include with the EVA, you do get yourself the display stand. Now the same display stand I've seen, I'm sure before, when we've had a look at other previous Threezero releases. Specifically, the Transformers come to mind. I think it's the same style of stand, if I'm not mistaken. It's all cast in black plastic with the same rather familiar looking display stand neck. The neck attaches in two places, one larger at the back, one smaller in the front, and this does have adjustability. What you do is just drop this up like that, and this will allow the neck to slide back and forth, again, depending on how you want to have the EVA unit displayed for yourself. You can then lock this in place by bringing this down, and it locks the latch in place. It basically sits along those little groove marks right there. The top half of the neck is also adjustable. In order to pull this off, you basically just bring this down, and you can extend it like that. In order to, of course, drop it, you have to push against this little lever right here. If not for that, it does lock into place. Located at the top, I've already taken the liberty of adding one of them. It comes with two versions of the umbilical cord. Now, this one is specifically designed to attach to the top of the neck. All it is just popping this off. And the way that they've designed it, it's ratcheted. See those little track grooves there? But when you are putting it in place, you can't move it back and forth. A nice guaranteed assurance that this isn't going to drop on you. When you are looking to move it, all you have to do is pop this off, relocate it, and then slide it back into place. And again, it's going to lock perfectly fine. The EVA unit does have two variations of the umbilical cord. We'll just move the stand to the side for the time being and bring in the other one right here. One is clearly designed for the display stand. You can see the longer of the two, while the other one is something that's just supposed to drape and attach to the back of the EVA unit. I'll show you guys how that works now. Now again, this is only going to be one designated for the display stand. To come included with this, you also do get yourself the umbilical line. Now one thing I really like about this is the fact that it's got a wire frame to it. So in other words, you can bend and manipulate this to have this exactly the way you want to have it draping on the back. If you look at the underside of the longer one, you'll see there's a little hole right there. And this just slides right into that. The only thing I did notice about it, though, popping that in place, is when you do put it back onto the display stand, you may find yourself then having to readjust the wire. And when it does fit into place, a lot of times, yeah, you're going to have to go back to that wire and just relocate it. It doesn't give you a whole lot of clearance to work with, a very little amount of space actually. But like I said, it just slides, just pops into the back right here and fits into the hole like that. The other option you can have available as well, we'll just move that to the side, is you can take the smaller variation of the umbilical cord, and it attaches essentially like this way right here. It still has the hose, well, the little hole for the wire that feeds right into the bottom here. I may actually consider the idea of taking like a wire clip and clipping the end of it. The short amount of time I've found myself putting the wire in place, it seems to have kind of burred the edge of it. Like I said, it may just clip a little bit of the end, or you can always just go the route of using the end you weren't already using before. Like I said, that just fits into place like that. Let me go ahead and show you where the umbilical cord goes. We'll go ahead and pick up the figure very carefully, spinning it around. And located on the back here, you see two little holes and a larger peg hole. Well, if you look at the back side of it, you'll see two smaller pegs and a larger peg, and that just fits into place. Just like that. And then from there, you can go ahead and take the wire and attach it to the bottom. So you've got the umbilical cord attached and hooked up to the back of its torso. And again, that works the exact same way when you do have not this version, but when you have the other one attached to the display stand. It works the exact same way, although you've got a little less wiggle space to work with when it comes to actually attaching the cable to the bottom. As for the rest of the things that come included with the figure, I feel Threezero packed the accessories that would satisfy fans of the EVA units. We'll start first sort of with the small things, and then we'll progressively work our way up until we get the largest accessory, which is the pallet rifle. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. I want to certainly show you guys these smaller featured accessories. To come included with the EVA unit, you get yourself two versions of the entry plug. A smaller one intended for the insertion mode, and a longer variation of the entry plug intended for the extraction mode. Not really does much change between the two. As you can see, it's all done in a white plastic, banded nicely with black along the edges there, and banded nicely with the gray down below there. Let me go ahead and show you where this goes. We're going to go ahead and carefully pick up the unit, flip it around, and what we need to do is we need to get access way into the cockpit, which is located right on the top torso here. There's a couple of ways to get around to doing this. You can either kind of use your finger to flick it up, but I also find it helps to see these little ledge points on either side. You're going to go ahead and just grab your finger. Now, you don't necessarily need to move the head to get access to it. If you feel like you're worried that you're going to actually clip this on the front, just like I said, hold it from the back. Go ahead and get your finger in there. And what you need to do is you need to pull the cockpit up. You'll see it'll extend. And then from there, you can lift this, pull this back. It doesn't pull back too much. That's actually to the fullest extent. And you'll see located in the top, there's a hole. Well, what you can do is you can either take the longer insertion plug right there, and that can just stick out. Now, of course, looking like this, it's for the extraction mode. But if you want to get the short entry plug, go ahead and just pull this out. This actually would be, as you could probably guess it, a lot easier to get access to. But you can take this shorter one and just fit it into the hole, and that pops all the way down. And it's short enough that you can actually take the latch from the cockpit and fold it down. I like that that's a feature that they included. Another feature I really like about this is if you take, again, your fingers, hold on to the latches on either side and pull this up. I want to do this so hopefully you can see it on camera. See how low currently the entry plug is? Well, if you lift this up and just pop this out, I don't know if you can actually see it or not, but the entry plug dropped down. You see that? I'm going to go and pull that up again. See how it brings it up along with it? So if you're thinking it would be difficult to get access to it, I like that they engineered something in there. So when you pulled the cockpit up, it would also pop up the entry plug just enough that you can then get your finger in there and you can pull it out. Still a little difficult because of the size of it. But again, there we go. Just a little harder to grab onto it. So I really like the fact that that's a feature that they incorporated into the back of the EVA unit. The figure will include also 2 variations of the progressive knife. The only real difference, as you can see from one to the other, is that this has been folded up for compact storage in the shoulder, which I'll show you in a second, while this one is intended to be held in its hand. Down to the smallest of detail, they've actually put SHV along the top of the blade, while painting it silver down below. Also, you can see there in the hilt, the handle of the blade, it's all done in a brown color with some nice additional grain afforded in there as well. But again, like this is going to be housed in its hand, while this one, on the other hand, does have a peg that goes right straight through it that does give it a little bit of posability. And that's really to the only extent of what it can pull off. But the neat thing about it, though, is unlike having the shoulder being a piece that opens up and then you fit this inside, they did one better thing. They instead gave you an extra shoulder piece that then attaches to the top of the arm. And it basically mimics what we're going to be seeing on this shoulder here, other than instead of making this a hinge, because of course a hinge could be something that could be more problematic, having that just on a single pin. What they did instead was sculpt it so that this is just the piece that's sticking up. You can't move it or anything like that, but it mimics the idea that this does open. From there, you're going to go ahead and take the version of the progressive knife that's folded up. And see there's like a little lip just on the top, and there's a little groove right there. Well, you can probably already see where this is going. Spin this around so the handle is facing outward, and then just slide this down onto that track. It doesn't have to necessarily go all the way in, and I guess from there, if you wanted to, you can also fold it down. It's entirely your opinion. But I mean, it gives you the option then to display it looking like it does, where of course this opens up and it can retrieve the progressive knife from there. To swap this out with the existing shoulder, one thing I would recommend that you do, though, is remove the blade first. I just find if you have the knife still in place, it's a little kind of harder to kind of get your finger in there because you're butting up against the top of it. But what you're going to do is going to grab the figure. And if you look at it from both sides, again, essentially what you're seeing is the exact same thing mimicked, with except this being sculpted and opened up. You can see what I mean right there. All you really have to do to remove this is it's not attached in both places. Instead, what it's attached to is only by the ball peg located at the back, whereas the front of it is freely moving. In fact, you can just easily pop it off like that. Sometimes it is a little bit difficult to get that back in place. You can see there's a peg hole just on the inside. What you do is just line it up to that hole, fit it into the hole like that, and then just bring the shoulder around. From there, you may have to just kind of go in there and just tweak and make sure you've got the ball joint actually in the socket. But it gives you, again, the look of having it opened without having to rely on the peg, without having to rely on a latch that would open up. And I like that. I think that's effective, and it means that from a molding standpoint, they didn't have to worry about constructing something that would hinge open and hinge close, because I would imagine a latch that size could be more susceptible to breaking. Then it gets a series of swappable hands. I'm sort of right now showing you guys 2 different variations of the hands, simply because I've got the opposites of them currently in the forearm. But you essentially get a pair of relaxed hands, one of which, again, on this side. You get a pair of closed fists, again, on this side right here. You get a couple of relaxed gestured hands. I always like when you get things like this. And actually, you know what? Just before we get down to looking at the rest of the hands, I want to show you the detail work that they incorporated just to the plastic alone. First of all, again, I like the color purple that they used. I've always been a big sucker when it comes to purple. Well, you can probably gauge that by the backdrop here. But on top of that, they've added some really rich panel lining. And again, some nice detail work on the knuckled areas there as well. Super sharp. Also comes with a couple of trigger firing hands for the gun that we're going to be looking at, the pallet rifle. Comes with a couple of those. And it also comes with just a regular gripping hand as well. Speaking of the pallet rifle, the largest of the accessories that come included with it is, of course, the pallet rifle itself. Done in a nice military green with some afforded silver along the top, also in the trigger and also on the nozzle there on the end. I like the incorporation of the red as well as that little stripe of yellow. And it does have like a real richness to it. I like also that they've added like the little riveted points on the gun. They've done all in silver. Very small details. And yet they were able to put that in there as well. You can go ahead and take one of the trigger firing hands. And the hands themselves are just soft enough, I find, to be able then to get the thumb in there and just slide this up. It's very actually super easy. And again, I like the fact that they used a softer plastic to be able to do that. If it was a harder plastic, then it would be, yes, a little bit more difficult to navigate a handle, especially further up on a gun like this, to be able to navigate that handle around the fingers, but successfully pulled off. And then from there, you're just going to pop that back into the arm. The last thing I certainly wanted to leave off for at least this part of the reveal is it does also come included with the awakened mode head. I want to, for that, first pick up the figure, and I want to show you what the defaulted head sculpt looks like right now. It's fantastic. One thing I do like that they incorporated into it was the fact that there's an open mouth. So just all on its own, before you even switch it over to awakened mode, it does have the functionality of having this as an opening function. You can actually open and close it. Nice detailing done on the interior of the mouth. Brought in some nice crimson red that normally you don't even see it because the mouth is closed shut. Of course, you've got the one long antenna that sticks up. This was something I was going to be worrisome about dealing with, but one good thing about it is it's a separate piece, although it's probably a little more difficult to remove now. But this is something that you can take off, especially when it comes to moving and changing the heads. If you are feeling like you're probably going to clip this and break this, then by all means you could just pop that off first before then addressing the swappable head sculpts. Before we swap out the heads again, I want to just show you the detailing on that. That's fantastic. Again, you've got that bright yellow in the eyes there, outlined nicely in bold black lining. Again, you get the additional green added there to the sides as well as down below in its chin area. Would you call that a chin? I guess you would call that a chin. And you've also got some additional red added there, slashed across the eyes. But the alternate head sculpt, I want to show you guys, pick this up right now. Putting it side to side so you can certainly see the difference between the two. This is the awakened mode head. And obviously the big change of complexion, really the change of expression, very obvious here when you're looking at the two. Now this mouth doesn't open and close. It's permanently sculpted like this to show the visible teeth. And of course the change in eyes also really separates one from the other. The head sculpt seems to be the same when you're looking at the two. The molding seems like it is almost identical, even the antenna. So really what does then change is the eyes as well as the mouth. For the same simple purpose of displaying this guy, I probably would be going still with a defaulted routes. But I do like the fact that Threezero incorporated and included an awakened mode head if you wanted to go that route as well. To change out the head sculpts, by the way, I'm going to leave the antenna on for the time being, and hopefully I don't regret that. I'm going to just very carefully pop this off of a small ball joint right there. The ball joint actually still remains with the head. And then there's the socket area right there. Again, going then to the awakened mode, very carefully popping that into place. And again, if you feel like you're going to have some problem with the antenna, just take that off first before then you pop the head in place. But I find like, despite its size, that ball joint slips quite easily into that socket. And then again, you've got this as the alternate look for it. Again, really, between the two, picking it up again, I do think I like this head sculpt a little bit more. But I always welcome the idea of swappable head options, especially if you are somebody like would consider picking up another one of these. Then you can have one in the defaulted head pose, and then you can have one with the awakened mode that we're looking at right here. Now then, long overdue, I feel. Let's spend some good quality time talking about the sculpting that Threezero did here for the EVA. Evangelion test Type-01, depending again how you pronounce it, turned out fantastic. Primarily, the material used for the body is die cast, and you certainly feel that immediately when you pick it up. The arms, for example, feel like there's a die cast. There's a cool to the touch sensation when you put your fingers against it, and it certainly is there as well in the legs. This is all die cast metal here. I feel like there are elements maybe to the torso that more are in plastic than being metal. But again, it still contributes to an overall weighted figure. Despite its sleek, slender body, there is some considerable weight when you were picking this up and holding it in your hands. Again, going back to the color palette they decided to go with, based, of course, on the series, you've got this exquisite purple and the green incorporated in there as well. Very small little details are also picked up here perfectly. These little line marks that they put across the armor. Certainly something I could spend a lot of time not only looking at, but probably talking about. But, of course, you guys want to see basically as much as you can about the figure before you want to pick this up for yourself. Some detailed pieces on the shoulders of the unit, for example. You got EVA 1. And we'll just spin it around to the back. Again, your connecting ports on the back if you want to use the umbilical cord. Now again, you could decide for yourself just to permanently display it with the umbilical cord. And again, this is the one that didn't come included with the display base. Just again, pop that into place, and then from there you can go ahead and attach the umbilical wire just to the bottom there. Might be something I would consider displaying with it. Also, you can see some detailing done to the side, to the arm here. You've got Evangelion 01 test type. Small print and yet so easy to read. I think they did a really good job of printing that in place. Let's have a look at the articulation on this guy. Now again, I could spend a lot of time just looking at the detail work done to him. As you can hopefully see for yourself, they just put a lot of work and care into this. But let's have a look at the articulation here on the EVA. Now the head rotates all the way around. You already saw by the nature of the ball joints. Generally small, and yet it still affords a good range of motion. Although by the nature of this, the way the chin is sculpted, it is going to limit a little bit of what you can actually do. You can move the head still back and forth perfectly fine, but moving the head up and down seems a little bit more restricted. The arms can also hinge out as well. And because we had already looked at the way that the shoulder construction is, this back is the only thing that's really attached to place. So that means you can also move this out of the way. And you can also hinge these shoulders back too. Really super effective the way that they did that. The arms do hinge back and forth. Periodically, I've noticed that the arms do unpeg themselves, but you can see how easy it is just to pop those back into place. I find especially when I'm rotating the arms around and hinging them out, sometimes those do pop themselves out. It does have a double hinge on the elbow. Very smooth transition also. It kind of looks like he's talking on the phone. But a double hinge on the elbow, and again, very smooth when it comes to moving that. There's a nice transition where you don't feel like you're hitting an elbow point. Boom, boom, boom. Elbow point. It's seamless, it feels when you're bending the elbow. The hands also rotate all the way around. I'm doing my very best not to cover as much as I can on this figure because I really don't want to block any of the details done to this. Then the upper torso is sort of feeling like a snake. It's accordion in a couple of places at the top here and further down. So it does all contribute to really some stupendous, some articulation on the figure, where again, you can slither it and accordion it like a snake. The legs also ratcheted out. That's to the fullest extent that you can get it. But again, when you incorporate a display stand, I'm probably down for the idea of having this in a running pose. And yeah, you can pull that off quite easily and quite effectively. All the joints, especially those in the legs, feel like they're super tight. Especially moving these back and forth. I would want and hope that the legs would stay pretty tight and stiff, and it seems to be the case, especially the type of joint that they seem to have used. There's a double hinge joint here at the top of the calf, and then of course the top of the knee. Again, like the elbows, very, very fluent when you move them. And again, what I do like also about this, that I didn't really necessarily mention with the elbows, is the curve of the way that they did the joint. Especially you see more of it in the knee here. When you are bending the leg, you don't have like just an abrupt cut in the leg. Instead, you get a nice continuous flow to it. Something small, but I do appreciate that. Then for the feet, I'm really surprised with how articulated these feet are. Not only can you move them back and forth this way, you can move them up and down, but it does also have toe articulation. And the whole time I've been doing this, you probably have noticed this front covering there on the boot. It stays completely out of the way. And there's actually, when you're looking at it, there's a ball joint or hinge joint that's attaching this to the foot. And because of that, when you are moving it, every single time that you are moving it, that boot cover moves out of the way. Very cool the way they did that. And then last and certainly not least, I want to show you guys some detailed work on the interior, the underside of its boots. Painted just as nice as it was for the rest of the figure. Certainly it would be a case with a figure this articulated. Just pop the shoulder back in place. It would definitely be something I would encourage. It's definitely something I would encourage using the display stand for. I mean, for me, certainly, when I would want to put in like a running pose is only something that you could pull off using a display stand. It just doesn't have the available means to stand on its own. I suppose it could probably try to balance itself on one foot, but it's going to teeter, it's going to totter. I definitely would recommend, if you are picking this unit for yourself, go crazy with it, especially for the amount of posability that they've afforded this figure. Make use of that display stand and put the EVA unit in a running pose, I feel, the way it should be. Here for the final looks of the Evangelion Test Type-01, I've opted to display the EVA unit in a running pose. Now, you may decide for yourself eventually when you pick up this figure and add it to your collection, you may want to have it in a different pose. I do appreciate at least they gave us the luxury of packing as much articulation in the figure in the first place that you can pretty much put it in any pose that you want. I also like knowing the reassurance of having the security of attaching this to the display stand, because if you look at it, the only thing that's only holding this figure in place right now is that umbilical attachment, that adapter that plugs into the rather familiar display stand we've seen with other releases from Threezero. But once you've got that plugged in place, the attachment is secure and the neck also locks in place, which is always one thing I've been a big fan of these display stands anyways, is that you can lock them into place and they hold weight really well. Despite its sleek nature, you would almost expect this to be a little bit more of a lighter figure, but because it's got primarily a metal body, it does have a misleading weight to it. And again, I like the fact that the neck is locked in place. So at least if I want to display it like this on a shelf, I know the figure isn't going to fall over on me. Now, of course, when it comes to the construction of the figure, despite its sleek design, I wasn't worried at all when it comes to moving the figure around over the course of this review. The only thing I was really worrisome about breaking on this figure was the antenna located on the front of its head. Of course, you can take that off to swap the heads, which I do appreciate that they included that in the first place. But as for the rest of the body, it feels durable, it feels secure, and when it comes to manipulating the joints, I never really had any worries about it. The only thing, if anything, as you saw in this review, that the arm popped off a couple of times, but it was simply just a case of popping it back into place, and I was good to go. The EVA unit has a ton of accessories, enough accessories at least, and I appreciate the fact that they gave you the swappable shoulder. So if you did want to conceal the knife inside of it, you did get just the option of popping that off and replacing it. I think that probably was the better route to go, as opposed to a little latch that would open up on top of the shoulder, because that would be small after all. Swapping the shoulder out, as you hopefully could see in this review, was a lot easier, I feel, than having to put a little door, a little latch that would open up on top of the shoulder. The coloring is vibrant on this one. The construction is really good. I'm really happy with how Evangelion Test Type-01 turned out. And again, a big thank you to the folks over at Threezero that allowed me the opportunity to showcase this unit before it launches. I think as it stands right now, this one is on a pre-order through various online sites. So if you're a big fan of Evangelion, or Evangelion, depending on how you pronounce it, this one, like I said, you may want to get on board the pre-order before this one sells out, because I believe it's below $200. One thing I always really like about the Threezero releases is they're usually under $300. Anyways, let me know down below in the comments section what you guys think of the Evangelion Test Type-01, and how do you pronounce Evangelion? Do you pronounce it like I've been doing in this review, or do you pronounce it as Evangelion? Always like reading your comments down below. If you guys are new to this channel and enjoying all the content you've been seeing over the last little while, because we always got new stuff coming your way, make sure if you haven't done so already to hit the subscribe button down below to turn the bell notification on. And yeah, come back to this channel on a regular basis. Also, if you'd like to go back and check out some of my other Threezero reviews I've done over the years, there is also a playlist designated just for Threezero, so feel free to check that out in your spare time. As always, guys, thanks for watching as you always do. Make sure you come back to this channel because there's always, like I said, new content coming your way. And I'll see you guys next time.